Okay, folks, it's Monday, September 28th at 12:01 p.m. in sunny San Diego. Going to be talking about the full moon in Pisces, awakening from the illusion. The illusion you're in, right? You're under some illusion. This full moon in Pisces is going to be opposite the sun in Virgo that we've been experiencing. This is the chart right now. This sun in Virgo. This is where the sun is right now. This is where the moon is right now on Monday, September 28th. As you can see when I go down here today, it's Shukla Triadashi. Shukla means waxing, and Triadashi means the 13th lunar phase. So Shukla Triadashi is what's called the Tithi, and it's the lunar day. And the moon is in Shatabhishak Nakshatra. Shukla Triadashi, the month is Adik Ashwin, which is actually the extra Ashwin month of this year. And the moon is in Aquarius, Rashi. And it's opposite Venus. So these things I just explained to you, this is like a daily snapshot of every day. And this daily snapshot is based generally or mostly on what's called the Panchanga, which is the five-fold division of time in Indian cosmology. This is the ancient Indian pre-Zodiac astrology kind of timekeeping. And so it's based on the nakshatra, which, as you can see in my software, the nakshatra is Shatabhishak. Also the Vara, which is Monday. Vara means day. Tithi, which the full moon is one of the Tithis. It means the lunar day. And then there's a thing called the yoga, which is the phase angle between the sun and the moon. It's the Shulam yoga, and the Karana, which is the half day. But in particular, we have the nakshatra, the Vara, and the Tithi are very important in forecasting and in knowing what the seed energy is of any given day or of any given fortnight. So when I do these full moon updates, of course, this is based on the sidereal zodiac of India. Like every text says, Ashwini and Aries begin the circle. And so this is where everything is aligned right now. You can see scrolling at the bottom of the screen there is the thing that says 14 days of forecasts with the new moon updates for your sign and 8 hours of classes. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but that's based on this Panchanga where I do every day. I do forecasts and updates. Me and one of my students and an excellent astrologer as well named Jeff Poole do these updates every day. And it talks about all of these qualities of the Panchanga. It shows the nakshatra of the day, the Tithi of the day, which of course, as I said, full moon is one of the Tithis, the Vara, which is the ruler of the day, and also the Rashi, where the sign, where the planet is in the sign, and any aspects or whatnot, like the moon is aspecting Venus. So you can see if I move this forward by day, this says Triadashi. When I move it to tomorrow, it'll say Chaturdashi. Oops, sorry, the wrong chart. It always defaults to the transits. It'll say Chaturdashi, and then it'll say Purnima on Wednesday, on Thursday, right? Purnima, Shukla Purnima, right? So this is the full moon. This Shukla Purnima, Shukla means waxing, and Krishna means waning. So the moon does this every day. There's 15 lunar days of the waxing and of the waning moon in Indian astrology. And you should be up to date on how those things work. And as I said here, that you can, I have a great program where you can get those, where you can get forecasts that have the daily astrology. If you go to that website, astrologytraininglab.com, you get these daily forecasts based on the things I was just talking about. Every day a forecast where the moon nakshatra, the lunar tithi, the lunar, the day, the vara, the aspects to the moon. Every day it's an update for me and from my student and friend and excellent astrologer, Jeff Poole. And you also get 8 hours of classes just when you register. It's only for 50 cents as a trial. And then if you want to stay with it, it's $39.95 a month. And so, again, 14 days for 50 cents and then $39.95 every 30 days for as long as you want to keep getting the updates. But you can try it for 2 weeks. And man, I've had people that have been members of this for like 10 years. I've been doing this since actually longer than 10 years. I always say 10 years because it seems like a long time. It's actually about almost 15 years I've been doing daily forecasts. And it's one of the reasons why I understand these shifts so well. And one reason I understand the Zodiac so well, because I do this every day. Every day I do a forecast, and I have forever. But you can see there's also these 3 courses. Again, you get all this for 50 cents. One is how to read your chart. Literally like a video of me taking you through using templates, using this great template that I have to show you how to read your chart. And then another one is this Foundations of Vedic Astrology that I taught at a conference years ago, 4.5 hours, where I explain how spirit takes form and descends through. My good friend Jeffrey Armstrong had some great things to say about that years ago when he and I taught at the conference where I taught these things. Look at how young and cute I was. I used to be pretty cute. And then Quantum Vedic Astrology, again, which is another great, this was a lecture that I did. So you can get those things there. And again, it's a great way for you to stay in touch every day with the energy. And so we're going to be talking today about this Pisces full moon. And you can see Shukla Purnima, which will be Thursday. And you look at the exact moment where there's the opposition. This is Thursday morning around 11:30, because you see the sun is at 14:53, and then the moon is directly opposite. It's 13:46. So if I go forward an hour, like 1 hour, that's 14:16. So right at the exact moment, see, it's still Purnima, and then you can see once this hits like 58, watch it to the minutes. Then you'll see this change from Purnima. It'll say Krishna Pratipada. It'll go from Shukla Purnima to Krishna Pratipada. There it is. Krishna Pratipada, which Krishna means waning, Pratipad means the first lunar day. So right when it hits the exact opposition, it goes to Krishna Pratipad. And so these are the every day, this is what's happening. There's a relationship between the sun and the moon. And this is the original timekeeping of India, because we're on the earth and we're watching the moon change, and we're in relationship to the sun. So our relationship to the sun is literally what makes our year. It makes our seasons. And then the relationship of the moon to the sun makes for every day. So this is the basic timekeeping of all astrology, really, but of India. This was their original way to keep time. Again, this is before they had zodiac signs and all the other stuff that we do with the horoscopic astrology. That branch of astrology came later with like the Greeks and whatnot, and in all the other cultures. But in India, they maintained this timekeeping of the earth going around the sun, which created the calendar, the year, the seasons, the solstices and equinoxes. That's just the earth related to the sun. But then every day they would measure the moon, because the moon is what moves most noticeably every day, and the moon's relationship to the sun. And whether it was waxing or waning, whether it was getting larger or smaller, and where we were in our orbit around the earth at the same time. So just looking at those 3 things is the basis of all Indian timekeeping. And they broke it out into this thing called the Panchanga. And so this is why I do these updates. And again, Adhika Ashwini means that we're at this point in our orbit around the sun. When we're in the Ashwini Soli lunar month, it means the Earth is at this point in its orbit. And then within that structure, there's 30 days of measuring the sun and the moon. And then the next time the moon becomes new, it's the next month. So this is the basis of Indian timekeeping and why I do these updates and why I do those daily forecasts. So very interesting and fascinating. And by the way, once you really dial into what the Indians were doing back in the Vedas with their timekeeping and all of these methods, you see very clearly also about the Zodiac. It's very clear because what they did in the Vedas was they grouped all of these things. They literally pinned everything that had to do with the calendar to the Earth going around the sun, because that's literally what it is. It's not the Zodiac, it's the calendar. So the months, the seasons, the solstices, all those things were pinned together. The calendar months, right? They called them, names like Tapa, Tapasya, and those things were pinned to seasons, like Hemanta, Shirsha. So those things were joined. And then there was another group of things they were measuring, which were not pinned to that, which were measuring the moon and things in the sky. And those things were measured with the Zodiac. So it's very clear what they were doing when you examine this. It doesn't take there's nothing to imagine or whatever. It's just very straightforward. So, and I'm talking about this so literally right now. You can see we're in this Pisces Virgo cycle, because Virgo is very much about all these details. And it's a time right now for people, it's very good to be dropping in with the facts and the details around all these things, because we're in this Virgo cycle. The sun is in Virgo, in sidereal Virgo. And this Virgo cycle with the sun here is where we're trying to get everything organized. And the Indians were very organized metaphysicians. Spirituality and metaphysics and whatnot is very structured. It's very organized. It's very, it's not just sort of random. There's nothing chaotic about the universe. It's very ordered. Our mind is very chaotic, and we tend to think that there's a thing called chaos theory, where we tend to think, at least this Western chaos theory has this idea that everything is sort of chaotic. Nothing's chaotic. It's very structured. In fact, it's so structured that it's boring. I mean, if it was chaotic, anything could be happening. Think about it. You could just be walking and people would be floating up in the air and anything could be happening. But that's not the way it is. It's very predictable. Again, so predictable that people are bored, even in a beautiful universe, because natural law, cosmic law, God's law, what we call dharma, really in the highest sense, the law, is very structured and ordered and organized. And this is why people study and should study these Vedic sciences, because they really organize existence, but they organize existence and creation around spiritual concepts. They're literally spiritual sciences. How spiritual science arranges itself to create beings and experiences and karma. It takes the most subtle and abstract, or the most complicated and subtle and abstract principles, and breaks them down into the most intelligent structure that you can imagine. And so, again, in the West, we tend to think that it's all chaotic. Even quantum physics it's all just chaotic. Anything could happen. Everything is. But the Indians took that same idea, because they understood about the quantum field of energy, and saw how organized it all was. Not how chaotic and random and crazy it all is, but how organized it is. And so, again, that's very important at this time, because we're in the Virgo cycle. Because that's where the sun is. That's where we are in our orbit around the sun, is in the Virgo cycle, where we're trying to organize and awaken from the illusion. Like I said, as the sort of backdrop of this time, And so that Virgo area of life, what we've been working on for the last couple weeks, when the sun and moon came together in Virgo, is not just understanding and seeing how everything is so organized, because that can just make us worried about all the details and make us so organized that we're not spontaneous as people. But we see how that organizing principle must be applied in the highest sense to that random, maybe chaos theory sort of principle. Because Pisces is where everything, where all those details just kind of blur together. Pisces is opposite Virgo, whereas Virgo is all the structure, the organization, all the details. Pisces is where all the details are blurred together. They're all just kind of like a mirage, all the details of the earth, because it's the sign of our metaphysical nature. Even as we go around the Zodiac, these last few signs are very much about transcendence and leaving this earthly plane. One second. When we start in Sagittarius, it's very much about finding belief and hope and purpose beyond this earth. Something to believe in. And then Capricorn shows where we need to take those beliefs and work and apply the work to what we're doing, right? Work hard on those things, not just believe it somehow it's all going to work out somehow. But take those beliefs of Sagittarius and concentrate and work and sit with it and do the work. In Capricorn, the inner work, because it's the reflective quality of Saturn. We have to do that inner work of Saturn and Capricorn, and then the outer work. Because Saturn rules Aquarius, we do that outer work for the world and finish our worldly karma in Aquarius. Aquarius is really about finishing our worldly karma. Because we're here, we all want to make the world a better place. We all feel ourselves as part of the world, something bigger than me. That's in Aquarius, but then ultimately we need to leave that behind as well. We're not just someone who was born here on Earth, surrounded by a bunch of people. We actually come from something else. We come from something deeper, which is that Pisces nature. And that metaphysical reality beyond 1 foot in the earth, 1 foot somewhere else. The Pisces is this duality. It's these two fish kind of swimming in opposite directions, at times going in circles. They can be kind of going in circles. Again, it's like, the way I look at it, it's like one fish is down here on Earth and another fish is up there in the cosmos somewhere. And they're kind of fishing, or they're kind of swimming. They're sort of tethered together, but they could be swimming in circles. So one of the things with Pisces is to make sure that we're swimming in a straight line so that we know where we're going. People who have Pisces rising or important planets in Pisces, they could just get in that kind of fantasy land where they're not really going anywhere. And it's not like that's anything wrong with that, because the real benefit of that Pisces nature is, the fantasy land can be time wasting and confusing and all kinds of things that would be considered somewhat negative. But the benefit is that's that same space of surrender, letting go, trusting in the universe, trusting in that cosmic realm. Opposite of Virgo. Virgo is where we feel like we need to control, where we're trying to control all of those details of the earth, right? I mentioned about all those details of the earth That's Virgo, organizing and seeing that sensible structure. But again, that can make us also kind of worried and responsible and feel the pressure to make sure that we get it all right. We got to make sure we get it right and we don't make mistakes, and all that pressure can come from Virgo. Pisces is where we're like, it'll all work out. It's all working out. Somehow it'll all work out. If you know Pisces people, if you're a Pisces moon, planets in Pisces, it's very mystical sign. It's a sign of mysticism and trust. Trust that it's all working out somehow. And also the realization that no matter how much control you assert over things, you only have so much power to make change. And again, this is also a big part of that Pisces. Again, strength and detriment. You can look at everything from both ways. I'm Gemini, so I look at things from both sides all the time. It's a benefit, it could be a detriment, and it's a combination of things. So the benefit of realizing your limited power is it makes you humble. It makes you realize that no matter how much control you have over all those details, which is the Virgo, you can assert ultimate control over every detail imaginable, and you still only have so much power. Life is still going to do what it wants to do. So does that mean that you don't try? So does that mean that because you realize you're not ultimately in control, then you don't try to control anything? That you just let all the details go? Well, no. You have to organize things the way you can, and then trust that God will take care of the rest, for lack of a better way to put it. So with all oppositions, with all sign oppositions, you have this sort of creative tension. It seems like it's opposite, but it's actually a creative tension. You see the sort of culmination point and the sort of shadow, to use a word that we talk about all the time now. Everything is the shadow, shadow, shadow. Everything is shadow. Everybody always talking about the shadow now. We're all, I guess, Jungian analysts or something. It's the opposite. And we always have to integrate the opposite into what we're doing in order to complete the cycle. And so the Virgo cycle, which is again where we have the sun now, that Virgo cycle can't really seek its full expression until it's integrated the Pisces lesson. So again, we're in this Virgo cycle now, where we're trying to manage and organize life in the most intelligent way, get all those details aligned properly. But it can be just all about this earth, all about our family and our money and what all the stuff people say, and just get too worried and sort of anal about all the details, nitpicking, and just stuck on every little thing that's wrong. Or even if it's not wrong as an opinion, it's just incorrect. You see, this is a difference between Mars and Mercury. To Mars, something is wrong. There's right and wrong. Right, wrong. Very clear with Mars. With Mercury, it's correct or incorrect. You might say that's the same thing, but it's not. Because right and wrong has more of a charge to it. You're wrong. When something's wrong, it's much more emotional, and it's more about actions sort of that need to be fixed. If you're doing something wrong, which is very Mars, then you need to do what's right. Right and wrong have this Mars connotation. But correct and incorrect is Mercury. And it doesn't mean the person's wrong, it means they're not correct. Now, they may have made a mistake, and that is not correct, but it's hard to say it's wrong in this regard. So Mercury, who is the ruler of Virgo, which is why this is important, really operates on this level of detail and idea. And I'm distinguishing this as well because you should distinguish it. And in the Virgo time, which is what we're in, and now the Pisces opposite time, you need to focus on what's correct, not what's wrong. What's wrong with actions can be easily corrected by doing the right action. Because right and wrong are about actions, and they're about doing the right thing. Correct and incorrect is how you recognize whether you're doing something wrong. Is that the correct way to think about that? Is that correct understanding? Is that the correct interpretation of something? Because if we can't see our own mistakes and correct them, it's literally even the same verb, noun and verb, then we're going to keep making the same mistakes. And the best part, the thing that really makes Mercury so powerful is its capacity for discrimination and to be neutral, which means neutral means I don't have to be right. I don't know who's right or what's right. I'm open. It's neutral. Mercury is a neutral energy, which says it could be my mistake. I don't know. And unless we're willing to look at the possibility that we've made a mistake, then we're never going to correct anything unless it comes through pain and struggle and hardship and fighting and ugliness. But we can course correct and correct ourselves all the time with our own by being neutral, open-minded, and having a powerful Mercury. And that's a big part of what we're doing right now with this Sun in Virgo. But to be able to do that and to be able to course correct and be correct and literally like awaken from the illusion, because this is also a big part of the opposite. When we're not thinking straight, we're just kind of, things happen and we just feel kind of powerless to do something about them and to look at them rationally and change something. We can get into this kind of the negative quality of Pisces, which is feeling like we're just at the mercy of the tides of, karma or something, where we don't feel empowered, where the cycles of time and karma and all of those waters, those cosmic waters that our soul commingles with, that all of that stuff is just so big that we can never change it all. So I'm just going to surrender and not try to better myself on earth or do something like that. Surrender can be a couple ways. There's the spiritual surrender where we just trust and let go and allow the truth and righteousness and whatnot to wash over us. That's the powerful kind of surrender. The unempowered kind of surrender is literally where we just give up and we think, okay, there's nothing I can do. And that kind of surrender, again, is where we get into all of the fantasy illusion. And rather than thinking clearly about things, we wind up in these, in this sort of confusing way. And so what the real power of this full moon in Pisces can be is that rather than just kind of checking out and falling into a kind of fantasy land default, you really tune in and put into practice those things that you know are right, that are correct. Really learn from things that are going on in your life and the mistakes you've made and all like that, which is really what the Virgo time is about. Organizing things in the most sensible way in your outer life. Of course, that's one of the most noticeable things that happen when the sun goes through Virgo. We organize the kingdom, like I say. But then the inner kingdom is also the real reason why we're here. And, especially studying and learning and dialing in with our spiritual practices and our spiritual growth is so important whenever Mercury-Jupiter axis is lit up like this one is, because the sun is in Virgo, which is Mercury's sign, and the moon is in Pisces, which is Jupiter's sign. And that Jupiter-Mercury axis really shows that it really shows that desire to bring together the details and the bigger picture. Like I talked about earlier, you can get. I have this really awesome site where I do these daily forecasts. Again, only 50 cents, 14-day trial. You can get new and full moon updates. And by the way, these are for each of the 12 signs. So after this, I'm going to go do an update at the member site between now and Thursday, where I talk about this full moon in Pisces for all the 12 signs, including yours, because that full moon in Pisces is different if you're Capricorn, which is happening in your 3rd house, opposite the sun in your 9th house, than it is if you're Libra, where it's in your 8th house, opposite the sun in your 12th house. So these lunation cycles are really the things that are driving our karma all the time, whether we know it or not. Whether you know it or not, for the last few weeks, this effort of concentration has been around the sign of Virgo, wherever house that is for you. That area of life is getting lit up right now. And so you're working on that theme right now, whether you know it or not. You probably just don't know it. But that's why there's been a focus on that. And this full moon in Pisces is now trying to bring that into balance. Because where the sun goes, there's a lot of concentration there. But then, like I said earlier, in order to really complete that cycle, we need to integrate it with its opposite, which is what the full moon is. So again, this Virgo cycle doesn't complete until we integrate the Pisces lessons. So again, one of the things that I do at the daily member site is all the full moons and new moons, I do a forecast for each of the 12 signs. For Aries, this is happening in your 6th and 12th house. Taurus, your 5th and 11th house, etc. To keep you on track with what is happening that month. But then there's also daily forecasts, like I talked about earlier. Every day, where I talk about the nakshatra, like today the nakshatra is Shatabishak, and the tithi is the 13th tithi. The vara is Monday. So those 3 things just right there, that it's a vara is Monday, which is the day. The moon is in Shatabishak, and it's also in Aquarius Rashi, and it's the 13th lunar day. Those things are really important. But I also talk about the aspects, like there's an aspect from Venus today. So again, daily forecast. Every day you get a forecast. Every 2 weeks you get one of the lunation updates based just on your sign. And then you get hours of classes as well. So again, the link to that, the live link is Astrology Training Lab, and it forwards to this page. And again, you can read about that. And there's a lot of details there. One thing you do want to understand is that it's 14 days for 50 cents. So you get 2 weeks for only 50 cents. And then $39.95 every 30 days for as long as you want. And again, like I said, I have people who have been part of that group since I started it, which was in 2008. So that's 12 years. So I invite you to do that, to stay up to date. Okay, people ask me all the time, what's the easiest way to stay up to date every day with this? Is there a way I can every day know what's happening every day? And I'm like, yes. And you can try it for 50 cents for 2 weeks and see every day what's going on. So again, I recommend you avail yourself, at least try it if you haven't before. So not to mention those 8 hours of classes, which are really powerful as well. So again, we're here now with this, on this Pisces full moon. It's really connecting our mind, because our identity and our actions have been around this Virgo nature. So then the moon goes around the zodiac, and it's our mind and heart going into a different realm. throughout the month. And so when it's full, it's literally fully now embodying our mind and heart based on that energy. And so in this case, it's that full embodiment of the Pisces energy. So it's really a time of creativity, of spirituality in the truest sense. I don't mean the pseudo spirituality of, I mean, it could be reading books and stuff, but that's literally just gathering information. I mean spiritual surrender and connection and that authentic channel to your spiritual nature is very open. When someone has the moon in Pisces, like in their natal chart, or any planets in Pisces, has that channel open. Pisces is literally like that channel to the other world, where the other world flows in through us. So any planets in Pisces has that. So with the full moon there, it's like that direct spiritual channel is open. Mystical channel. And again, mysticism is different than spirituality. They're similar, but mysticism is that soul connection, that experiential direct connection that you have to your spirit. Whereas authentic spirituality is as well. They're practices. But again, because the terms are used so strangely now, we think that believing in something is actually spiritual, which it's not. It's actually just religious. We can believe in anything. So I'm not talking about belief when I'm talking about authentic spirituality, or especially mysticism. Because mysticism is that direct channel to your spiritual identity. So this is really what the channel is that's open, and we'll feel it very powerfully on that full moon day, but even the day before as well, when the moon goes into Pisces on the 30th, we'll feel that channel really open. And because the moon is full, we could be very full. There's a lot of fullness of those mystical, subtle, creative waters. Now, again, even if you're an artist and you're any kind of creative work, any kind of inspiring work is very supported at that time. And it'll be opposite the sun in Virgo, which again is very good for organizing, because the best artists and the best art is also, deeply organized. There's a quality of art that is also just based on the craft. And you can really look at Pisces Virgo as like the art and the craft. The art part, which is like the inspiration and that part of it is very Pisces-like, but the capacity and the power to organize that inspiration into the right steps is the Virgo part. And a great artist is going to have the inspiration from birth, which is the Pisces part. But the more they do it and the better craftsmen they become, which is the Virgo part, you'll see their art start to grow and become better because they've learned to organize the inspiration better. By the way, that's the same thing with astrology. People ask all the time, how much is intuition and how much is science or something? People love to turn everything into a false equation because it's so hard for our mind to hold opposites together. Again, which one is right, which one is wrong, rather than which one is correct and what's incorrect and what's the ratio. It's not a struggle between being intuitive, using your intuition, or using logic, or whatever the other choices that people often present. It's both, because there's both a creative part of everything and there's a literal scientific correct part. Every great science, every great practice, everything has a structure to it, which is the Virgo part. What is the structure? But then every structure is a platform for creativity. So, for example, if you don't learn astrology correctly, like if you don't learn things, for example, like the Zodiac, if you don't learn that correctly, how it's set up, if you don't learn all the qualities of Sankhya philosophy, the gunas, the elements, karma, dharma, if you don't have all of that structure first, you might still be a great, quote, healer and very intuitive and metaphysical and have that channel, that sort of Pisces channel open. But then it's just going to be a mess. It's just going to be going in all these different directions. There's not going to be a sensible structure to contain your natural creativity. I see it all the time. And again, this is why I talk like this, because I know people especially talk about how people need to actually learn this stuff. You need to actually learn the structure correctly. Otherwise, all of that natural intuition and all that stuff that refers to that channel that you have open is not going to be reliable. It's not going to be something that really benefits you because the details are too sloppy. So again, this is the real axis. There's a big axis here between Pisces and Virgo and also Gemini and Sagittarius that's between the art and the craft. And in this Virgo Pisces axis, for sure, it's really like that. You know, I listen to great artists and musicians, and you can really hear it in that. You can really hear it when you listen to great artists. And, you know, I love classical music, right? And you can really hear most classical composers because, you know, composing classical music and a symphony is very hard. You know, these classical composers like Mozart and Beethoven and Wagner and Tchaikovsky, you know, they heard all that music in their head. When you hear symphony playing a piece of music that was written, the composer was sitting there. There was no orchestra in front of him. He heard all of that in his head and had to write it down, expecting that one day hundreds of people would show up to play it. So he had to, all of that was in his head. So it's a lot to do. First, but it's very exact. You have to write notes, particularly in a specific way. But you have to do it in a way that's connecting to some creative goal. And there's all kinds of things going on that a composer is keeping straight in their mind. Not to mention being creative and making the music beautiful. But they heard it all in their head. Now they had a piano and stuff like that. But you can really hear in the early symphonies of great composers that their first symphonies, there was still the same creative spark was there. You know, Mozart wrote Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star when he was like 5 years old. Mozart was a genius from the day he popped out of from the day he was born. He always had that spark of genius because that's his nature. But his earlier symphonies, for example, he hadn't learned to really harness that creativity yet. You could still hear the genius in Mozart. You could hear it in everything he wrote. But as he got older, his later symphonies and his later piano, you know, concertos and all of that, then you really saw not just the artist, but the craftsman. He became a better craftsman. So his art was better because he learned how to make the music move in a way that wasn't so disjointed. You hear this with all kinds of artists or even bands that are together for a long time. They learn how to do it better, how to harness the creativity better. So again, this is a great metaphor for this cycle that we're in right now. This mixture between the structure and the science and the craftsmanship, and again, even just of life. This is very much what we do with our altar or something. We organize things and then we put something inspiring and beautiful that connects us to the mystical. So it's a great time to like organize your altar in your home, right? That Virgo organizing, putting things in the proper place, keeping things clean, keeping things proper. That's what we're supposed to have with our altar space. But then having it leading to something that's otherworldly, that's beyond just this world. And the nakshatra of this full moon is Uttara Bhadrapada. So this is that section of Pisces which is, it's called the Serpent of the Deep. That's what it's called. Serpent of the Deep is the part of Pisces where we not only feel the inspiration and feel the connection, but we also make a commitment to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the heart. Because ultimately Pisces is very much about love and devotion to something. And true devotion is selfless and it's courageous. It's the willingness to, again, penetrate to the very depths of our own weakness and our own struggle and our own pain if we're going to become spiritually developed. But it's also that part of Pisces, honestly, which has a sort of painful understanding of life. Pisces can be a very pained sign where they can feel the heaviness and the burden and the pain of life. The first section of Pisces in Uttara Bhadrapada shows that kind of excitement and enthusiasm and kind of almost sort of fanaticism about our spiritual nature, where it's like, oh wow, I'm this thing, and where we're very fired up about the other world or something like that, where we've just got a glimpse of it and it's quite new. So you could see the kind of like, okay, I don't want to make an archetype, but sort of like this, the kind of party and, oh yay, like the kind of hippie losing himself in the bliss and ecstasy of it all. That could be all of Pisces, by the way, but the Uttara Bhadrapada is kind of like that. It could be that kind of expression, that just wild enthusiasm that also needs to get sort of tethered and grounded. And then the Uttara Bhadrapada part is where that calms down a little bit, and then we realize, okay, this isn't just a party. Right? We're still here on Earth with karma. We can't just escape from all of that in Pisces. It's not that we're here to just escape from it all. Now that we've seen the truth, we're still here on Earth with karma, and we have to deal with it. And Uttara Bhadrapada is where we can really feel the burden of that. And also very much about the burden of other people and the burdens they carry. Because Pisces is very much a sign of wanting to, help to empower others and to help empower them along in their path as well. And so it can be the sort of pain of realizing and feeling powerless, like I said before, feeling powerless to save humanity or whatever it might be. Ultimately, it's save our own soul. And again, Pisces can get very wrapped up in trying to save the world, trying to save humanity on one level, and then kind of needing to tune it all out in the next. It's a very dual sign. Like people who have Pisces ascendant or moon or whatever, it fluctuates wildly between, again, like sort of between worlds. Uttara Bhadrapada is quite a serious nakshatra. So again, and it's fine we need to take this seriously, but we have to be careful not to be burdened by that pressure of of all those things that we don't have control over, of our powerlessness. We can't let our powerlessness make us give up and make us go, okay, well, I can't save it anyway, so let me just sit here and watch TV or just tune out because of that pressure of time and karma, and realizing I'm just a little fish in this ocean. What am I going to do? But ultimately, we realize we are the ocean. We've always been the ocean, and the fish isn't just a fish, just like the wave isn't just a wave. The wave is the ocean. So that surrender and that depth of heart and feeling is very much about this Uttara Bhadrapada. And it's also this symbol is also the symbol of where you know, these nakshatras are, the Bhadrapadas are the symbol of it's actually of a bed, of a deathbed. We have another bed over here with the Falgunis, which is the marriage bed. Purva Falguni and Uttara Falguni are also a bed, but they're a marriage bed. Purva Bhadra and Uttara Bhadra are also a bed, but they're a deathbed. And Purva Bhadra is the front legs, and Uttara Bhadra is the back legs. But you say, what's the death here? It's the death of the ego. So this is really the death of the ego going on here. And again, the ego doesn't want to die. It wants to survive. It wants to live. It wants to hang on. And ultimately, after that ego dies in Uttara Bhadra and surrenders that pain of existence and that pain of disconnect from its soul. And again, what we do is we try to project that out and say, I want to save everybody. But really what it is I want to save everybody and not look at myself. We all know this is what happens, right? People that are the biggest saviors of humanity need to first save themselves, because it's usually a projection, because they don't want to look at themselves first. I'm not ridiculing it, by the way, because it's a great instinct. And in Pisces, there's a lot of this. Selflessness instead of self-reflection. Instead of facing my own inner confusion, I'll save the world. Yeah, and I feel things so deeply. And it's like, you need to stop looking at the world and acting like the world is the problem. The world's not the problem. You have to save yourself and again, be willing to sit there and do that Virgo work as well, because Pisces also gets its culmination in Virgo, where you need to be able to sit there, sit still, and organize everything and be very pure in your self-awareness. So after the Uttara Bhadra principle and the ego dies, at this point of Pisces, the last section of Pisces is Revati, which is where the shepherd comes and guides the soul home on those last journeys of the path. Once we can surrender the ego and allow the ego to fall off, then the last steps of the journey are the most gentle, the most gracious, the most cared for, which is Revati. And again, when planets are in Revati, there's a guidance to them, where someone wants to be a guide, helps to guide others naturally, like a symbol of like lost animals or trying to help the lost souls home. But again, it's also a projection. We have to save our own soul first. We can't go trying to guide other souls home while our soul is still wandering in the abyss. That's always what's going on. And we're always learning to be a better spiritual guide or aspirant or meditator or whatever. It's not like it's over. And this, these energies are universal. We can all relate to that, because this is what's going on for all of us now. This is in the sky. This isn't for any individual. And this, we can see this in the world now, of course, with all the stuff that's going on. What can really be impactful and beneficial, I think, is really to dial a lot of this back, especially for those who are spiritual, authentically spiritual with your practices and whatnot. Now is really a rare time, the full moon in Pisces, to really get the picture, to really get the message, especially through the heart. Because there needs to be a real revolution of the heart in order for anything meaningful to happen. Can have a bunch of ideas about things, and again, we think we're, quote, spiritual because we're listening to Sam on YouTube or watching this thing or doing this and that. All of that's fine. It's better than not. It's better than watching something else or not doing anything else. But it's really, nothing really happens until you sit down, close the eyes, do some kind of energetic work, yoga, pranayama, asana, meditation. That's the only thing that works on a spiritual level, is some kind of practice. Now is a great time. Again, the sun in Virgo is wanting to organize and manage that structure, which is what every great spiritual practice, again, just like I was talking about with the composers of music or whatever, it's a method. There's a way to do it. There's a way to actually do it. You don't just go, well, and again, I talk to people all the time. You know how many readings I do? Hundreds of readings for 15 years. I always ask people about their spiritual practice. Yeah, I have my own kind of thing. I just kind of, walk around and listen to music and do this. And I have my own spiritual. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not, it's just wasteful. It's better to take 15 minutes of proper meditation. We know how energy moves through our consciousness. It's not a mystery. And again, it's very organized. Again, Virgo, you want to connect to spirit, Pisces, do this thing. It's not, you don't have to invent anything. And again, when I hear people say it, it's because I know that they're really not doing spiritual practices. They're not quote spiritual. They're getting there, but they're not doing any practices yet, and they're not really making much progress. It's better than what it was before, but again, this is why all spiritual traditions say the same thing. You have to breathe differently. If you breathe differently, your mind will change. You will have a different experience of your own consciousness. It's not an opinion. It's science. Like everything, it's science. It's science and art. It takes that natural spirituality, that naturally spiritual being you are, and focuses it so that the energy can move. Just like I was talking about with the composers and whatnot, it's the same thing. You're a composer. You're already a symphony in itself. You're already a great composer. You're just not composed. You're just not doing the right things. So again, this is why people learn something like yoga. It's a very simple way to just sit this way, relax this, do this, breathe this way, do this and that, and you'll have the experience. You don't have to invent the path. You just need to walk it. The path is there. It's like someone who's getting ready to go through the jungle and they're like, I have no idea how to do this. Like, well, there's a path. Walk on the path. Oh, no, I'll find my own way. All right. Okay, if you just want to do that, if you want to waste years trying to get through a jungle or do it, in 2 hours, okay, there's a path. So being intelligent and doing these practices are really powerful now with the moon in Pisces. So do proper teachings, correct teachings, which is the Virgo sign, the Virgo end of it. Do it correctly. Don't act like you have it all figured out. You don't. Again, Virgo is a sign of humility where we realize, okay, I'm never going to be able to organize all of this. It's been organized for me before, and all I need to do is do it. Okay, I'll do that. And actually do the practice correctly and connect with that natural metaphysical being, which is your true nature. So again, this full moon is in Pisces, and it's in a couple days on October 1st as I record this now. And again, if you want to get updates, daily updates, please take me up on this. Only 50 cents for a 14-day trial. Again, daily forecasts, full moons, new moon forecasts, hours of classes. I'll put the link there again. And I hope everyone has a great day and has a great full moon in Pisces. It's coming up in the next couple of days. Start to tune in with your higher self and start to organize in the next couple of days. Get more focused, more introspective, and connect with that inner, that inner genius, that inner spiritual genius that's just waiting to take shape. So you